I ruined everything with my ex after one reckless moment of weakness, a kiss that shattered our love. I love you, but I can't be with you, he said, while calling the police on my desperate pleas. 5 months of silence later, I'm left wondering, was I ever enough? It will be a lengthy post since I will be pouring my soul out. You can probably sense that I do not really have anyone to talk to, right? My ex and I broke up last year in July. We had been living together for 3 years. It was a strange beginning and had its peculiar moments. Firstly, we met through a friend with whom I had a friends with benefits situation, and that friend happened to be someone close to him. However, we just clicked. It was somewhat inconsiderate of me, I know. That does not make it better, but I had been honest with the other guy from the very beginning. I eventually ended that situation because with my ex we just clicked. After one drunken party, feelings escalated and we ended up hooking up. It was complicated at that time as his friends were not particularly friendly toward me. Of course, I could understand their perspective, but my crippling guilt did not improve the situation. So that essentially summarizes the beginning. The relationship overall was great to say the least, that is how I felt. Another complicated aspect was that I had been struggling with depression back then and naturally that had its effects. At the time we were graduating, there was a significant amount of partying taking place and yes, I developed an escape mechanism. I had some tendencies to drink more than I should. Thankfully, for lack of a better word, my aggression was always directed inward. I would express thoughts of self-harm, which I know even as a cry for help was not healthy. I try not to judge myself now for that, even though I regret it. I see that it was the best I could do at the time. My ex frequently expressed concerns about that habit of mine, and gradually over time I stopped drinking. I loved him that much. However, I felt as if he was distancing himself despite my improvement and change. It was devastating. During that relationship, I lost my close friends, and soon he became my only friend. My life revolved around work and him. A year prior to the breakup, we took a break. It was not something I wanted, but as I mentioned, he was pulling away. I addressed the issue that I did not feel liked, that I did not feel wanted. He agreed, admitting that he wanted the relationship to end. He was looking for other places to live. I attempted to discuss it with him, but he was not receptive. Another mistake on my part occurred when I attended a gathering with some old classmates, and a guy, a friend of mine, made a move on me. To be honest, I did not expect it, however, I did not stop it. I did not want it, but it provided some type of acceptance, like a way of soothing myself, even if only temporarily. It was a foolish decision, I know. I do not know what miracle happened then, but the following day, my ex approached me and stated that he had reconsidered, that we should try again. My heart sank. That was everything I had ever wanted at that point, but now I was supposed to turn him away. I did not, I simply could not, I remained silent. But it came with a cost. I started losing sleep and panicking without reason. My mental state was chaotic, but I kept striving to improve myself. I continued attending therapy and attempted to grow. A year passed, we were all right now. We were calm, happy, and we managed to balance the relationship. It finally felt like things were coming together. And I told him. I informed him that I had kept quiet about something he would not want to hear. That is when chaos ensued, at least that is how it felt to me. We were lying in bed and I disclosed the kiss. He immediately pulled away and left for about an hour. When he came back, he told me this was the end. It was hell afterward. I think it was primarily his fear of being alone, combined with my struggle to fix the relationship. I moved out, but I continued to show up every other day, attempting to sit down and discuss things with him. I am generally clingy, and during that situation, I really challenged myself to give him space, even just that much. I began losing sleep, barely eating, barely working. I constantly needed someone to talk to. Thank God for my family who was there for me. But still, I was not coping well at all. When I reflect on that time, I realize I was too pushy, but I also understand I did not know what was truly happening. He was trying to leave. He consistently said, I love you, I do not want to lose you, initiated intimacy, invited me to family dinners, but also made comments about how emotionally unstable I was. I cannot deny that. How unproductive I was and how clingy I was again. Yes, I had this enormous fear of abandonment. A recipe for disaster. That situation lasted a month, and then the disaster struck. I was completely irrational. We were at our place, he was packing, I was unpacking. My home, my safe place, was crumbling. He would not pause to listen to me, and I did not even know what I was doing. I just needed assurance that he would return, that everything would be all right. Completely unhealthy. I am not trying to claim it is okay or excuse my behavior in any way. I just genuinely want to share. While I was doing that, I was also assisting him in moving his belongings to his car. I am not sure I can convey how irrational I was, even to myself. By the time he gathered all his things, he was extremely upset. That was it for him. And my awareness of that only made me cling harder. I got into his car and refused to exit until we talked. Then he called the police. I cannot say I blame him. After the police left, I completely shattered. I was discussing self-harm, crying, pleading for him to stay, but he said I had lost my mind, got into his car, and drove away. I did not hear from him for 5 months afterward. I was completely blocked. Again, I cannot say I blame him. During that time, I started taking medication. It was about time, right? I went to therapy, moved away, and completely isolated myself. I was so terrified. Perhaps I still am, though I push myself to go out at least once a week. I have been listening to podcasts, reading books, and attempting to comprehend why I behaved that way. Yet I continued to believe he would return. After all, he was my closest person, and I was his. Even if I went crazy, he still loved me, right? That is what he claimed. I was improving before that call, honestly. I had a decent understanding of what led to that disastrous situation. I realized how my inability to care for myself occasionally caused me to hurt the ones I loved. I also recognized that he had contributed to creating an emotionally unsafe environment. I had begun to pull away in certain ways, looking ahead, searching for another path. And guess what? My phone lit up. It was him. Finally, after 5 long months of silence, I could say I was sorry. I could explain. I could demonstrate that I had changed. I was able to communicate with my friend again. It turns out he only reached out to see if we could unblock each other, just in case. I attempted to talk to him seriously 23 times, asking if we were going to remain a part of each other's lives, but I do not think he understood me. Perhaps it was merely guilt, I do not know. 6 months have passed. I still long for him. I have healed somewhat, but there are other parts I could not. I mostly read during the day, anticipating September when university starts again. But I have goals now. I am moving forward. I do things for myself. I maintain my peace. I strive to expand my knowledge and achieve more stability. I know that as I progress, life will become richer and this ache will transform. But yes, I continue hoping for a second chance. Am I that forgettable? Did it all mean nothing? Was it so wrong that I could not make up for it? I recently messaged him. We had a pleasant conversation, or at least I think so. I told him I missed our discussions. He did not know how to respond. That is fine. I do not expect anything from him. I did not bother him afterward. I felt the need to express it, and I do not regret being vulnerable. Even though I do not think I would do that again, not because of the outcome, but because I feel it is not appropriate anymore. It is not mutual. As I mentioned, I am not searching for excuses. I think this is something I will have to live with and regret. I accept that I was wrong, and in being wrong, I hurt someone. And I try not to be that person anymore. I strive to heal that part of myself. All of that being said, I am uncertain about what I am seeking. But yes, thank you for listening. Story 2. My boyfriend's carelessness ruined my life, yet I still love him. After my strict parents found our messages, I was blamed for everything while he got a free pass. You ruined our son, they yelled. Now I'm stuck with no college options and spiraling into despair. Can love survive this chaos? When I began the 11th grade, I met a boy. We started texting and gradually grew very close. In just 6 months, he transformed from being merely a classmate into my closest friend. At some point during this time, I developed romantic feelings for him. The issue, he was interested in someone else. That was painful, very painful. He even confided in me that he liked her, but she did not feel the same way. I had to sit there and listen to him vent about how difficult that was while trying to conceal how much it hurt me. Eventually, he moved on from her, but I still harbored those lingering feelings and didn't know how to deal with them. So I decided to confess, primarily for closure so that I could move on. I did not anticipate that he would reciprocate my feelings, but he did. We began dating when the 12th grade commenced. Honestly, being in a relationship with your best friend is an entirely different kind of magic. The first 3 to 4 months surpassed all my expectations. I genuinely felt like I had found my person. But then everything fell apart. We reside in India, where even conversing with the opposite sex for an extended period raises eyebrows, so you can imagine how taboo dating is viewed. I was exceedingly cautious. I never accessed Instagram from my phone. I only used incognito mode and ensured that none of my family members had access to anything. I believed I had everything under control. He did not. His father somehow discovered our conversations. It was not just texts. He found screenshots, pictures, and folders containing the most outrageous messages we exchanged. We joked a great deal, and honestly, if you did not know us, it would be challenging to differentiate between what was sarcasm and what was sincere. His father, of course, took everything at face value. A brief background about my family: my parents are extremely strict. While growing up, they were both physically and emotionally abusive. I will not delve too deeply into that here because I do not want to make this post unbearably lengthy, but to summarize, I never truly had a safe environment at home. There was no one to confide in or space to make mistakes. So when his father discovered our conversations, he did not merely confront my boyfriend. He approached my school. He directly reported us to a teacher, shared the screenshots, and divulged everything. On the same day, my father was summoned for a meeting. Now the teacher he approached, she is incredibly unpleasant. I strive to remain respectful toward people, but she genuinely deserves that label. Here is some background if you are interested. Once I came to school after a particularly distressing situation at home. I was crying, doing my utmost to conceal it. She noticed, pulled me aside, and I actually confided in her, thinking perhaps I could trust her. A colossal mistake. She took everything I disclosed and treated it as gossip, relaying my struggles to every other teacher as if it were some juicy story. I felt utterly betrayed and humiliated. So when I discovered that she was the one managing the situation involving his father and mine, my heart sank. When my father came home that day, everything erupted. He physically assaulted me. He yelled at me, hurled insults, slut-shamed me, and tossed my belongings onto the floor. He even threatened to withdraw me from school entirely. I remember just standing there, feeling numb, wondering how things had deteriorated so drastically. And it did not end there. Later, my boyfriend informed me that that same teacher had told his parents that I was a bad influence on him. She claimed that because I had abusive parents, I would amount to nothing in life and would drag him down with me. Just to clarify, I have consistently achieved better grades than he has. I have maintained focus while he previously slept in class, got distracted, and slacked off before we even met. But somehow I was deemed the problem. I was labeled toxic, as if having abusive parents made me defective or dangerous. Our phones were confiscated, and our parents ensured we could not meet or communicate. So we resorted to writing extensive letters to each other and passing them through a mutual friend since we were under surveillance at school. However, his mother eventually discovered the letters. I am unsure if he was careless or if she is merely adept at spying, but she did not inform my parents. Instead, she went directly to the teacher and presented only my letters. It made it appear as though I was the one constantly pestering him, despite our mutual efforts to navigate the situation under nearly impossible conditions. Consequently, we had to stop writing letters, at least temporarily, and went no contact. Of course, his mother found the letters. She did not inform my parents, just brought my letters to the teacher, making it seem as if I was the one pursuing him and refusing to let go. I was in a deteriorating mental state. My grades began to decline, and I failed my physics midterm, an occurrence I had never experienced before. I wept myself to sleep each night because of how poorly my parents treated me, all due to everything that had transpired. I felt exhausted from consistently being the one caught due to his thoughtlessness, leaving photos undeleted, leaving my notes out in the open, but I never voiced any complaints. I did not want to blame him. He already felt awful, and I did not wish to exacerbate his guilt. But the breaking point: his parents contacted mine and requested to speak with me directly. His mother told me that I had ruined her son. She claimed that I caused him to have anger issues and that I made him suicidal, even though he had confided in me that it was them who made him feel that way. She asserted that I drove him to lose friends. He was already lonely before we started dating because he was new to that school, and demanded that I stop ruining his life, even though I was the one who encouraged him to study, provided him with notes, and helped him keep up. Then, his father instructed me to apologize and concentrate on my own studies, as if I were holding their son captive in a relationship in which he had no say. His mother even claimed that my introverted nature had a negative influence on him. Every single flaw he had, blamed on me. And my own parents, they sided with them. They scolded me as well, claiming that I had destroyed someone else's life and future. That shattered me. I felt utterly isolated. I spiraled. This entire ordeal affected me so profoundly that I attempted to take my own life. I was admitted to the hospital. Fast forward to now, a great deal has transpired that I cannot delve into, but yet again he was careless. We were discovered again. I have been searching for colleges. There was one I particularly desired. I received emails from them inviting me to visit. I informed my boyfriend about it, ensuring he applied as well so he would not miss out. The fees were significant. My father insisted he could not afford it since I have two siblings, but somehow I convinced him. His father, he paid his way in without any issue. Then his father messaged my dad stating, "I am sending boyfriend's name to college's name. Let's ensure they do not end up in the same place," essentially instructing my dad to keep me away. That devastated me. I was the one who found that college. I worked hard to even be considered, and now, due to their actions, I am unable to attend. My father is refusing once again. I scored poorly on the entrance exams. I cannot afford to pay my way in like him. I have no other options. I am likely going to end up at a subpar college far from home because my parents are deciding for me. I wanted college to be a fresh start, a means to reclaim my life. But now, I feel hopeless, unmotivated, suicidal once more. I have been blamed for everything: his grades, mine, our relationship, my mental health. My teachers despise me. I did not even regain access to my laptop. He got his back. And now, even my future is being taken away from me. And if you are wondering why I still stay, despite the fact that he has hurt me in other ways as well, it is because I do not have anyone else. He is my support system. I emotionally rely on him. It feels like he is the only one who understands me. But I am exhausted. I no longer know what to do. Story 3. My best friends abandoned me after my breakup, then ghosted when I found my soulmate. I can't support you again and you gaslit me, but they never asked questions. Now I'm thriving with new connections while they're off enjoying life without me. How do I heal? This is a lengthy post, everyone. There is a lot of backstory, so here we go. My friends are E female, 29 years old, who is also my sister; M female, 30 years old, who I have known for 25 years; and G female, 30 years old, whom I met through work roughly 5 years ago. We were very close-knit, always communicating in our group chat and consistently spending time together, either all four of us or in smaller groups. I was in an unhealthy relationship with a guy I met in high school for over 11 years. When we broke up, I was in a really bad place. The girls were absolutely there for me. In the months that followed, I felt completely empty and depressed, and it took a considerable amount of time and some excellent therapy to remind me of my self-worth. I truly could not have done it without my best friends. They all strongly disliked him throughout the entire time, but what I experienced was essentially a form of Stockholm Syndrome that is a real monster, which does not listen to reason. Of course, we were able to laugh and joke about it afterwards, so all is well. Fast forward to when I was putting myself back out there in the dating world again. Since I had been out of the dating scene for nearly my entire adult life, I had not really had the experiences of meeting different people and figuring out how many frogs one needs to kiss, etc. The girls had done their fair share of dating, so I respect their experience, but I also feel that it is something one must figure out on their own to some extent. I met someone and we had a fairly decent friends with benefits situation for a year, which I was genuinely content with. We were solid friends, the benefits were there, and it was a mutual understanding that there was nothing more to it. The girls did not approve of this arrangement, constantly urging me to end it, always, and I mean always, expressing their warnings and concerns whenever I even mentioned him. However, I appreciated the company, the physical relationship was good, and I could still live my single life and maintain my independence. It became irritating enough that I consciously decided to mention him less often. Fast forward again and I'm feeling more inclined to search for love. My friends with benefits was completely supportive of this. I began dating a nice guy and the girls were neutrally supportive. Unfortunately, he started having cold feet, and during the months we dated, he ended it, and then we got back together a couple of times. I genuinely liked him, so I was disappointed when this occurred, but I was willing to give it another shot. M in particular immediately disliked this man because of his cold feet, and once it was officially over, all three of them joined the hate club. I can understand their desire for what is best for me, but it felt more like harshness than genuine concern. By this point, my friends with benefits was no longer in the picture, so I returned to dating apps. I think I may have gone on 3 first dates over the next 2 or 3 months. This is when things began to get rocky in my friendships. Lord Drop E had a period in recent years where she was serial dating, engaging in friends with benefits situations and living it up. When she would report back in the group chat, it was all fun times, jokes, and laughter. She is now in a lovely relationship with a great guy whom we all adore. M is dating as well, enjoying her life filled with fun and laughter. G does not date as much, but we support her either way, and when she does date, we cheer her on. However, when I tried to share my dating experiences, there were no laughs. My dating stories were met with a surprising amount of hostility, warnings, and disapproval. Again, I am only talking about 3 first dates here. I am not even attempting to claim that I was in a promiscuous period. It became so discouraging that I completely stopped sharing my experiences with them because it was no longer enjoyable. I was unable to have casual discussions with my girlfriends because their reactions made me feel like a disobedient child who had no idea what I was doing and who should just sit down and listen to the adults. Instead of just withholding information, I began sharing my dating stories with my mother. She became my go-to for calls before the dates and right after I returned to my car. This honestly brought us closer together, but sometimes you want to talk to your friends, not your mom. Then I met my current boyfriend. Our first date lasted 3 days and I feel as though I have found my soulmate. I have never been happier in my life and I cannot wait to share this joy with my friends. This man possesses the most kind, respectful, chivalrous, gentle, and sweet soul. It may sound cliched, but when you know, and there is simply no other way to describe it. We both sensed it just from our conversations before we met. I cannot wait for my friends to witness our happiness together. I cannot wait for them to see me receiving the love that my 11-year ex never could and never did provide. When we met, he shared something about his past that I am afraid I cannot disclose here. I sincerely apologize, but I will attempt to provide as much context as possible. This is the kind of information that many people might learn about and at face value would completely dismiss him. Essentially, everyone in his life is aware of this detail about him, and every single person still loves him for who he is, for the joy he brings, and because it is not even relevant to his character now or then. This event occurred 15 years ago, and although it still has some very few inconsequential effects today, it is mostly a non-issue. He met my mother within the first couple of weeks, and I informed her about his past. She was extremely kind and understanding, and she absolutely loves him. Due to the increasing hostility from my friends regarding my dating life, I chose to be cautious about divulging this information as I wanted them to meet him first. I wanted them to witness the sunshine he brings into my life, how happy we make each other, and essentially mitigate their inevitable judgments before they could form them. E and G did meet him once before at a chill gathering at my house. I communicated with M first because that's just how it unfolded, despite her not meeting him until afterward. I wanted to share this in person because it is sensitive, but I became overly enthusiastic and M told the other two before I even had the opportunity. We are talking within hours here. With a surprising amount of immediacy, our group chat became silent. I was still active, still engaging and posting memes. It was crickets. I think it took me 5 days to figure out what had transpired. I knew exactly what had happened. Did anyone reach out to ask questions? No, they disappeared. This was at the beginning of November 2024. I believe I have seen them 3 times since then. I have reached out and attempted to discuss the situation with them. M is still here for me, she will still respond. However, E informed me that it took too much out of her to support me through my 11-year breakup, and she just cannot do it again. G has not spoken to me one-on-one since, and when I reached out to express that I missed her, she was very angry and accused me of gaslighting her, lying, manipulating, and essentially being upset that I did not inform her first. I have shared all of these experiences with my therapist. It is incredibly painful to lose my 3 best friends in the world, but I am trying to view it from the perspective that if they genuinely care, they will always be there, or that true friends would never treat someone like this in the first place. I have made some wonderful and cherished new friends and have found a great community through this relationship, and I am feeling fulfilled. However, it still hurts when I see online posts of them hanging out and doing things that I know I would have otherwise participated in. How can I come to terms with this? Does anyone have any helpful advice or words? This is definitely a little black shadow over an incredibly beautiful and happy chapter in my life. To summarize, 3 long-term best friends supported me after my breakup from a long-term relationship. They have been very judgmental and harsh when I began dating again, and then they became upset when I met a wonderful, kind man. They are uninterested in my happiness, and then they completely abandoned me upon learning semi-sensitive details about my new boyfriend. They told me quite explicitly that they do not want to be my friends anymore and have not spoken to me in 4 months. They continue to socialize without me. Story 4. Caught between friendship and unspoken love, I confided, "You seemed so lonely that night." She replied, "It's hard to face this." Now at 40, I wrestle with my feelings for my 27-year-old cousin who's trapped in an unhappy relationship. What's my next move? I am 40 years old, and a couple of years ago I returned to my hometown. Not long after, I encountered someone at a party who I now regard as a close friend. She's 27 years old, but there is an interesting twist. She is also considered a cousin, however we are not biologically related as we do not share any lineage between grandparents. We had been aware of each other prior to that party, having only met in passing without ever spending time together in the past. However, that night something clicked. We realized that we shared many of the same interests, and from that point on we naturally became close. She is in a relationship that has lasted about 2.5 years now with someone I was loosely acquainted with before they got together. Over time, through conversations with her and mutual friends, it has become apparent that the relationship is troubled. She has confided in me that they are fundamentally incompatible, something she did not recognize early on. They rushed into things, moving in together after just 1 month, and have been attempting to make it work ever since. She is adventurous and enjoys being out at dinners, concerts, weekends away, or even just hanging out by the poolside. He is the complete opposite. He stays home, engrossed in video games, showing little interest in leaving the house. Our friendship began as entirely platonic. I was not seeking anything beyond a companion to share enjoyable experiences with. We matched in energy in a way that felt rare. Other friends might enjoy the same activities, but they do not possess the stamina or consistency that she does. We could go out one weekend and be ready for the next one, while also keeping our activities balanced by trying different experiences, not just partying. Last summer, the dynamic subtly shifted. We began spending more time alone together, and this was mutual. She would invite me out and I would do the same. At first, I still viewed it as merely a friendship. I assumed she needed an outlet, a break from the stagnation of her relationship. Her boyfriend refused to go anywhere, even for simple errands. He would prefer to wait in the car, texting her to hurry up, rather than come inside to say hello. I have even invited him to join us, whether it was just the two of us or with a group, but he never accepted. She has confided in me that he only wishes to spend time together when it involves his friends and family. Even then, she feels out of place. I know his family as well. They are not unkind, but they possess a certain superiority that would weigh on anyone. Somewhere along the way, my feelings began to change. It was not a sudden shift. It was more like one day I simply became aware that I cared for her in a different way. However, I have kept this to myself. I know she is unhappy in her relationship, but she is also not in a position to leave. She fears the fallout from family and friends, and practically speaking, she cannot afford to be on her own. From what she has shared, it seems they have become more like roommates than anything else. He sleeps on the couch most nights. As for whether she might feel something for me as well, I am not certain. I have never been particularly good at reading people, especially when it pertains to this kind of situation. There are moments, however, I have caught her looking at me from across a room as if she is contemplating something she will not express. Then there was our most recent night out. She stayed close to me the entire time, sitting beside me instead of across from me, leaning in and casually touching my arm or leg. It was not overt, but it was more physical than usual. We had been drinking, and she was more tipsy than I was as I was the designated driver, but we have both been intoxicated before many times, and she has never behaved that way. That night, for the first time, she invited me into her home. Her boyfriend was present, glued to his games, just as she had predicted. She was drunk, and he did not even stand up to greet her, let alone check if she was all right. She asked me to stay and have tea, to which I agreed, even though we never actually made any. We sat on the couch for a while until she suddenly felt ill and rushed to the bathroom. He did not seem to care, so I followed her in and helped her. Afterward, as she returned to the living room, she began yelling down the hall toward him comments that were not particularly kind. I intervened, gently redirecting her and helping her to sit back down. She lay across my lap for a while in silence until she required assistance again. I helped her through it just as I had before. Each time she voiced more accusations at him, complaints about his inattentiveness, rudeness, and laziness, but I kept placing myself between them, attempting to defuse the situation. I honestly do not know if he heard her or simply did not care. Eventually, she decided it was time for pajamas. I walked her to her bedroom and waited outside in case she stumbled. That is when I heard her crying, really crying. I entered, sat beside her on the bed, and she opened up to me, expressing how lonely and sad she felt and how she did not know how her life had ended up this way. I did not say much. I simply sat there, brushed her hair back, and listened until she fell asleep. Once I confirmed she was all right, breathing steadily and remaining still, I left a bucket and some water by her bed before quietly going home. After I returned home that night, I sent her a quick text asking her to call me when she woke up, just to check in and see how she was feeling. She did, and we ended up talking for about an hour. She seemed a bit lighter than she had the night before, although she still appeared worn out from everything. I offered to bring her a coffee, and when I arrived, it was just the two of us. Her boyfriend was still inside, absorbed in his games. I brought him a coffee as well. We sat outside together, just the two of us, and engaged in conversations about nothing and everything. We remained there for over an hour, the dialogue flowing naturally, until she had to leave to meet her mother. I wanted to mention how upset she had been the previous night, how vulnerable she had appeared while crying in bed, but it did not seem appropriate. She was still recovering from the hangover and the timing just felt wrong. I did not want to add to the burden she was already carrying, so I chose not to bring it up. I departed once her mother arrived, feeling as though I had avoided a bullet, but knowing that it still weighed on my mind. Throughout the entire week, however, I could not shake it. I felt deeply for her. More than that, I simply wanted her to know that she was not alone, that I was here for her no matter the circumstance. I did not want her to feel isolated in that mess, especially if she had no one else to turn to in that moment. Fast forward to the following weekend, and we were together again, this time to assist her mother in moving some furniture. Afterwards, we met up with some friends, shared a few laughs around a bonfire, and it felt like a good, normal evening. However, as we headed back to her place, I felt the familiar urge to discuss the things that had been on my mind all week. It felt like perhaps the moment had finally come to express how much I cared and what I had observed that night. However, in hindsight, I realize it probably was not the best timing. As we pulled up to her house, I turned to her and said, I wanted to share with you that night, when I witnessed you crying in bed how sad and alone you appeared, and how much I wanted to be there for you. I just didn't want you to feel like you were carrying that by yourself. She did not shut down or resist my words. She seemed to absorb it, nodded, and thanked me for expressing it. However, I think I caught her off guard. I had waited too long to mention it, and by then we were so close to her place that I did not give her any time to really process what I had said. It was as if I threw it out there and then immediately had to walk away. The rest of the night concluded with our usual conversation throughout the week and a casual reminder to call me if she was not going away for the weekend. She had indicated that she hoped to spend the weekend with a long-distance girlfriend she had not seen in some time, but that friend had become unresponsive. I think that weighed on her as well. Looking back, I cannot help but feel that I may have made a mistake. Perhaps I placed her on the spot. I know how much she struggles with anxiety, and I cannot help but wonder if I made her feel a little embarrassed or uncomfortable. Now I am left trying to determine what to do next. Part of me wants to leave the responsibility with her and grant her space, allowing her to process everything at her own pace. Yet the other part of me, well, I simply want to ensure she knows I am still here for her, regardless of how much time has passed, and I do not want to miss any time with her, even if it remains solely a friendship. Story 5. 10 years after our magical Tinder connection, Felix's message sends my heart racing. You're my flower-picking moment, he says, igniting memories of long-buried desire. Caught between my loyal husband and fantasies of passion, I'm torn. Should I risk it all for a friendship that could ignite a flame? Throw away because my family and friends are not supposed to discover this. 10 lovely years ago, I met someone, let's refer to him as Felix, and oh my goodness, was he something special. We connected through Tinder, and soon after I found myself entirely focused on him. While Tinder is primarily known for casual encounters, we only engaged in conversation. We spoke for hours each day, and it felt enchanting. Felix had an incredible ability to delve into my thoughts and genuinely understand me. Every interaction seemed to plant small seeds of light in my life. The clouds no longer appeared so gray and the world felt vibrant. Eventually, we decided to meet. I must admit that I was immediately captivated by him. I also appreciated that Felix was shy and reserved. He had no experience whatsoever, there were no games, just honesty. However, foolishly, I ruined it. Essentially, my insecurities overwhelmed me. I misconstrued everything he did as a sign of disinterest simply because I could not fathom that someone like him could be interested in me. Years later, I understood that a man does not spend hours every day talking to you, smiling throughout, and driving for hours just to talk for another 30 minutes if he is not interested. Back then, though, I was naive, insecure, and foolish. Eventually, I convinced myself that the situation was unsustainable. I was already deeply in love, so I attempted to make a subtle move, one he likely did not even recognize as a move. Even though I was aware that he was just as shy and insecure as I was, and still am, I kept telling myself that there was no mutual interest on his part and that it would be better to let it go before it broke my heart. So I did exactly that. I ceased all communication. I tried to forget him and made up a silly excuse about work being demanding, yada yada. In reality, I was simply aching with love for him. I moved on and eventually met my husband. He later told me that the first day he saw me, he knew he wanted to marry me. He did everything right. He took me out on dates, he waited, and he provided me with space and comfort when I required it. He built a home with me, brought flowers and chocolates on every date, displayed impeccable gentlemanly behavior, supported my career, took care of me when I was unwell, and ensured that I felt safe, loved, and well cared for. I reciprocated because he deserved nothing less than the world. We got married and began a family. Yet there was a small crack in our happily ever after libido. My husband is reserved in that aspect. He might even be asexual. Although we engaged in sexual activity at the beginning, it soon began to feel like a chore for him. We experienced fights, attended therapy, took dance classes, and had more arguments. I begged, pleaded, and negotiated. At times, things would improve briefly, only to dry up again. And even when we did have sex, it was always me on top, with him mostly lying there waiting for it to conclude. We have children, so yes, there were a few instances, but there remains a substantial gap between us sexually. It felt as if we were from different planets. Eventually, he became frustrated and told me, "You are the most wonderful person on earth, but your desire for physical intimacy is genuinely annoying and not normal." Now we are in the third year without a kiss or anything more. He believes that this is normal, that all couples experience this after some time, and that I am the one who needs to adapt. In every other aspect, he is willing to compromise and make me happy, but not when it comes to sex. So what did I do? I suppressed that part of myself, the part that desires touch, attention, and adventure. I locked it away and tried to avoid thinking about sex. Surprisingly, it began to work. My life became peaceful. I shifted my focus to work, family, friends, and making our house a home. I engaged in gardening, hiking, yoga, and Pilates. I even became a lifeguard in my spare time. I avoided anything sensual and replaced it entirely with fitness. Somehow it helped. The intense desire for intimacy curled up and went into hibernation. Winter was on its way, and it promised to be a long one. Then one day, I received a message from Felix. It had been so long that I didn't think much of it. I called him, delighted just to hear from him. He had also found someone, built a home, started a career, and had children. We chatted for hours, laughed, and I confided in him about everything that was troubling me at work. He provided excellent advice. He discussed his own stress, and I listened and offered my guidance. He appreciated my advice. A little seed of light was once again planted. We exchanged goodbyes. Everything remained friendly and casual, but occasionally my thoughts began to wander. I found myself contemplating kissing again and becoming aroused here and there. I maintained control by staying even more active. Fast forward 6 months. There were issues with his girlfriend. They broke up after she crossed boundaries and picked fights in front of the children. We talked, and I researched legalities to help him formulate a plan. Felix mentioned that he was nearing burnout, work and emotional stress were too much for him. While we were on the phone, he expressed how everything was terrible, and suddenly I burst out laughing because even while complaining, I could hear his radiant smile through the phone. I explained why I laughed. He responded, "That's just the effect you have on me." We laughed and the tone shifted gently. I continually checked in with myself. Is this inappropriate? Would my husband be upset? No, but I still felt guilty. At the 2-hour mark, our call needed to conclude. It was my last chance to say something. My mind raced. Should I tell him I missed him, that I missed our conversations? I didn't want to provoke anything. Instead, he gently nudged me. He referred to me as his flower-picking moment. It was an inside joke from the past about love and attraction, a time when I was deeply in love, and now, a decade later, I recognize he was just two foolish, insecure people who could not overcome their fears. I responded, "Yes, same, you will always be my flower-picking moment as well." Then we hung up. And I realized that bear inside me was wide awake, angry, hungry, ready to hunt. I was in serious trouble. My mind started spinning out a myriad of adult-themed fantasies about him. I couldn't sleep. I was up all night engaging in self-pleasure. Throughout the day, thoughts of sexual encounters with Felix occupied every moment I could spare. I dug out an old video of him, an interview about teaching children to swim. He appeared wet, partially undressed, curling that irresistible lip while speaking, laughing, and playfully covering his face for a moment. The video was a decade old and had about 1,100 views. The person who posted it probably noticed a sudden spike, as one single IP address had watched it around 100 more times within 2 days. I felt like a stalker, a sexually deprived, predatory creature. I fantasized about breaking into his home and ravishing him, or sneaking around his job site while he worked overtime and engaging in wild acts of passion. I also felt remorse. My husband is loyal, funny, and intelligent. I refuse to act on these urges. He deserves better. But I miss Felix. I miss the way we used to converse. I know that I cannot face him, as I would likely become overwhelmed, aroused just by being near him. My husband once suggested the possibility of opening our relationship. I scoured Reddit, and it seemed like a terrible idea, fraught with regrets. Honestly, if Felix were merely attractive, it might be a different story. However, I was in love. I hope I am not again. So can I remain friends with him? Probably not. Honestly, I cannot. I am typing this while once again listening to his voice from that interview. That leaves one option: to cease all contact. But oh, how that stings. I concoct a multitude of excuses about why remaining friends could be viable. We could maintain a platonic friendship, right? Right. Meanwhile, the adult-themed fantasy reel continues to play in my mind. I know what I must do. I just needed to release these thoughts. Story 6. Caught in a storm of sleep and love, my girlfriend exploded. "You care more about sleep than me." As a 21-year-old battling PTSD and insomnia, I finally found peace in rest. Now I'm torn, fight for a love that feels one-sided or prioritize my hard-earned tranquility. Summary, my girlfriend initiated a significant argument with me today regarding my excessive sleeping in recent weeks, which is particularly distressing given my severe insomnia, as getting sufficient sleep is a rare blessing for me. She has made similar remarks in the past that hurt me, making me feel as though our relationship is one-sided. I am now contemplating whether the relationship is worth the effort, as I wonder if I can maintain both my peace of mind and my current girlfriend, or if I must sacrifice the relationship to preserve my tranquility and lifestyle. Details, as mentioned in the title, I enjoy sleeping, perhaps a bit too much, and my girlfriend has taken great issue with this. To provide context, we have officially been a couple for 3 months, following approximately 3 months of informal dating. From the outset, around our third or fourth date, I made it clear to her what to expect from me. I have epilepsy, autism, severe insomnia, and significant post-traumatic stress disorder. I am fully aware that, despite undergoing therapy and achieving recovery, there are moments when maintaining intimate connections is challenging for me. Thus, I ensured she understood the terms before committing to this relationship, to prevent situations like the one we are currently facing. To clarify, I do not seek advice regarding my conditions. I am providing this context. Given my PTSD and insomnia, sleeping is a luxury for me. Most nights, I am fortunate to get more than 2 consecutive hours of sleep without being disturbed by night terrors, and I feel blessed if I manage to sleep more than 20 hours per week. I am often left sleep-deprived throughout the day. Nevertheless, I have found a measure of peace which I have worked extremely hard to achieve, and it is the most important thing for me. This little peace I have gained is my most treasured possession and is non-negotiable. Therefore, you can imagine how grateful I am for any opportunity to sleep. Now onto the dilemma. For the past few weeks, I have enjoyed the rare ability to sleep more than usual due to the spring holidays and an overall sense of calm, which I have been taking full advantage of. Consequently, I have been texting my girlfriend less frequently, and on one occasion I woke up so late, around 4 p.m., that she canceled our planned date. This morning, however, I woke up earlier than usual for a Sunday, texted her to say good morning, and after not receiving a reply for 2 hours, I assumed she was still asleep. Therefore, I decided to take a nap by setting a 1-hour timer to catch some extra sleep while still hoping to wake up in time to go out with her. I ended up getting about 30 minutes of napping, during which she bombarded my phone with messages, expressing concern that my sleeping habits were becoming out of control. She conveyed that she worries I prefer to sleep rather than spend time with her. Upon waking, I felt invalidated and minimized as I read her messages. It seemed to me that finally being able to rest was seen as an inconvenience to her, which hurt. I had hoped she would be happy for me to finally have a full night's sleep, and on some days even more. Instead, she expressed fears that my sleeping could harm our relationship and stated that she feels I would rather sleep than be with her. She mentioned she had made plans for us today but canceled them because she was uncertain about my wake-up time, and she has been feeling this way for a long time. It has been 3 weeks since I started oversleeping. She also brought up the one time we discussed going on a date, but I woke up too late at 4 p.m. for us to go out. To me, it seems she is exaggerating, but I want to validate her feelings and understand her perspective. I told her that our situation might look different to each of us and has varying significance in her mind compared to mine, and we should aim to bridge the gap for a better mutual understanding. She responded by saying she feels unvalidated. Feeling unvalidated, I found that insulting. Still, I tried my best to remain calm, de-escalate the situation, resolve our issues, and enjoy our Sunday together. An odd back and forth ensued where I genuinely tried to understand her and explain my viewpoint. She progressively became more closed off until she outright told me she was angry with me and did not wish to talk anymore. At this moment, I thought, what if it would be better to break up with her? This is not the first time we have encountered a situation like this. I am overwhelmed by the number of different arguments we have had in such a short time. On several occasions, she has done or said things that upset or hurt me, and I always attempt to gain a better understanding and communicate clearly with her. I often end up apologizing for misunderstanding her and putting in considerable effort to change my behavior. But whenever I inadvertently upset her, I feel she tends to blame me and becomes upset, often avoiding resolution. She opts for breaks and alone time, pointing fingers and adopting a near-victim role. I also end up apologizing and trying to improve, but regardless of who the offender is, which I believe is irrelevant, I feel I am resolving these issues alone while she contributes little to improving our relationship. In other words, I am left feeling that our relationship is one-sided. Moreover, the peace of mind I have worked incredibly hard for, perhaps the single most important achievement in my life, feels compromised by this relationship, which should ideally support my well-being. A pattern of difficulties in our dynamic is emerging. For instance, last month I reconnected with a childhood friend and my girlfriend expressed jealousy. 2 weeks ago, she took me to a party where I knew no one, becoming upset when I chose to text on my phone instead of socializing. 2 months ago, she gave me the silent treatment at a social gathering after I put in my earphones to manage a conversation topic that triggered me. And even earlier, she had reacted similarly in a different gathering because I did not engage in a group dynamic that I found violent and disrespectful. Somehow, I always seem to be the one apologizing while she accumulates grievances to voice in future arguments. Although she claims to value transparent communication, she goes to great lengths to avoid resolving our differences and continuously points fingers at me, expressing how I influence her feelings or behavior in a progressively detrimental manner. Consequently, I am left questioning whether our relationship is worth fighting for or if I would be better off breaking up with her, despite my love for her and the pain that would cause me. I consulted both of my sisters, ages 21 and 19, for advice, but they provided differing perspectives. My younger sister suggested that I contemplate breaking up, as my relationship has undermined my peace, and I am inclined to trust her since she enjoys a stable and happy relationship herself. In contrast, my twin sister encouraged me to make a greater effort to maintain my relationship, as my girlfriend does bring me happiness. I am also inclined to trust her because she has known my girlfriend longer and even played a role in introducing us. Thus, in my absolute indecision, I turn to Reddit, the repository of wisdom seeking guidance. Is there a way to resolve the issues between my girlfriend and me? What can I do or say to maintain both my peace and my relationship? Or am I perhaps better off ending the relationship? If forced to choose between my peace and my romance, I will always opt for the former without hesitation.